Hello and welcome back. Let's do one final question just to finish up this section. So if theta is an angle where tangent of theta is equal to a half and cosine is greater than 0, cosine of that angle is greater than 0, find cosine of 2 theta. So here there's a few different ways to go about this. I'll show you one way. First of all, we want to find cosine of 2 theta. And there were 3 different formulas that we had for cosine. If I scroll back up to those formulas, all of them involved cosine squared or sine squared or maybe even both. So the question is, we're told about tangent. How can we get cosine or sine from a tangent? So if we come back to the tangent function, how can I turn a tangent into a sine or a cosine? So for me, the trick that I really like is if I go back to the Pythagorean identities and I look at tangent squared plus 1, I get secant squared. And what's so special about secant squared? Well, the secant is just 1 over the cosine. So we can turn tangents into secants and then secants into cosines, so that, and then once I know cosines, I can turn those into cosine of twice an angle. So the formula that involved cosines was this guy. Oops, minus 1. So what I need to do is figure out what is the cosine of this angle if I know what the tangent, is. And then I just plug it in, and that's it. We did learn other ways to do this. We did learn other ways to turn tangents into sines and cosines. I just want to do it this way to practice using some of our identities. So let's come down here and let's go tangent of theta plus 1 should be equal to secant squared theta. Well, tangent was negative a half. Square plus 1, that's going to be equal to secant squared. And negative 1/2 squared, well, the negative signs cancel out, and I get 1/4 plus 1 is equal to secant squared. 1/4 plus 1 is 5/4. That's equal to secant secant squared. Now here, I'm not looking for the secant, was I? I was looking for the cosine. And secant is just 1 over the cosine. So a secant squared is 1 over cosine squared. So here, I can even skip a step and just take the reciprocal of both sides. So if I take the reciprocal of the right-hand side, I just get cosine squared. If I take the reciprocal of this side, 5/4 becomes 4/5. And that's what the cosine squared is. And this, I can plug in. Cosine squared is just 4/5. So I don't even have to solve for cosine. I don't need cosine. I've got cosine squared, which I can just plug in. 2 times 4/5 minus 1. And 2 times 4/5, that's 8/5. Oops. Minus 1. 8/5 minus 5/5 is 3/5. And there you go. This should be our answer. And it's quite nice because we didn't even have to use all of the techniques that we needed. We didn't need to turn tangent into cosine immediately. We could use some of our identities and end up skipping steps because we don't have to solve for the cosine individually. We just solve for the cosine squared. The trig identities help. Write them down in your notes so that you just have them at a glance. You do not have to memorize these, although it might be helpful.